Welcome again, everyone. It's that time. I'm usually a person that's on time. How about you? The only thing I want to be late for is my own funeral. How about you? Yes. The one thing I don't want to be late for is the second coming of Jesus, though. Yes. So let me have a word of prayer with you. May I do that? Let's ask for God's blessing. I'll ask for God's blessing upon you and your family. You ask for God's blessing upon us, and let's do that. Our Father in heaven, we thank you in the name of your precious Son, Jesus Christ, for the blessing of life and health. I invite the great physician, Jesus, to be here with us, and the Holy Spirit to be with Barbara as she shares with us. And I ask for your blessing upon every family that's represented here. Help us to have ears to hear your voice and to be led by you so that we can have better health and praise you in the process. And I thank you in the precious name of Jesus, in which I have confidence. And everyone said, Amen. Amen. Barbara, we welcome you up front.
Thank you and welcome. Do you know one of the first verses that I claimed in my journey of health was Psalm 32, verse 8. Where God is giving a promise. He says, I will instruct thee and teach thee in the way that thou shalt go. I will guide thee with mine eye. Isn't that a beautiful promise? Do you know that promise is for each one of us? That on our journey through health, he will guide us and he will lead us and he will teach us. Because I believe that he designed every one of us to be our own doctors. And you know, that's one of the hardest things I have to do, is to inspire in people a trust in their own bodies, in their own gut feeling, in their own interpretation of what's happening in their bodies. Because as we go through these classes, I think you will begin to see that everything we need, we've got. We just need to know how to awaken it, how to work with it to bring back a balance, because the fact is our body was designed to heal itself. And we've come to a time on planet Earth where many people are in total ignorance about their bodies. And I was in Peru last year, up in the Andes, in the Sacred Valley. It was very beautiful. And at the conference I was at, a woman stood and spoke. She was 35. She said, I grew up in Peru. She said, at 18, I went to New York. I went to university. I studied business. She said, I was in the corporate world. I had a very good job. I did anything that I could find. And I started to get sick. She said, I started to get very sick. My digestion, my bowels, my energy levels. So I went back home. I went back home for a holiday. And I knew there was a healer there who used herbs. And in the first consultation, he said, what are you eating? And when she told him, it was pretty bad. And he said, how do you feel when you eat that? She said, I don't know. And that question that answer shocked her. She didn't know. She was totally oblivious as to how she felt after she ate that meal. So one of the most important things when being our own doctor is developing this. Developing the ability to listen. What's your body saying to you? Is your stomach purring? Do you have that word? That's what cats do when they're really happy. Or is it incredibly uncomfortable? Or is it nauseous? And you notice what this girl, she said, I don't know. She had no awareness of actually how she felt when she ate that meal. She started to know things weren't right because she wasn't going to the bathroom every day. She started to get a deep pain and her energy levels. So this brings to my mind another principle. If you don't listen to the first whisper, the body's going to start screaming at you. And she wasn't listening to the whisper of discomfort, uncomfortable. She just kept writing it off or take a tablet to mask the symptoms. And then the body started screaming. Then the deep pain came. Then the inability to even pass anything when she sat on the toilet. If you don't listen to the first whisper, the body will start screaming. And when it starts screaming, it's doing damage. My aim in producing the book sustained me, and we thought we'd have plenty, but we've just run out. And that's wonderful news because it means that you're interested. You're interested in your body. You're interested in how you can begin to give it the right conditions. And the reason we've run out is because a lot of you are so interested, you want to get that book for your friends, for your family. And that was my aim, to have a handbook, so that when a problem arises, when the first whisper, I hope, happens, you can go and have a look. What does that whisper mean? What can I do? What can I do to bring relief? But there are some symptoms today that are puzzling people. And these symptoms are indicative of a hormonal imbalance. And I would have to say probably between 80 to 90% of people I meet today are showing symptoms of a hormonal imbalance. And we're going to look at why that would be so. But let me begin by taking you through some of those symptoms. For a female, it could be early periods. You know, normal is 16 to 18 for a female to get her periods. We're getting 9-year-olds, 10-year-olds getting their periods. Why? And remember Newton's third law of motion: to every action there's an equal and an opposite reaction. And Proverbs 26 verse 2, which I'm sure you know off by heart by now, that the curse causeless shall not come. No problem happens without a cause. It's almost like taking away part of that little girl's childhood. Another symptom is very heavy periods, very painful periods. Tender breasts at period time, premenstrual tension. How many people think that's normal? Men included. They're living with the women. I've got some good news right now. It's not normal. And tonight I'm going to show you how you can turn that around. Did I hear a hallelujah there? Yeah. Some more symptoms, some more serious symptoms of hormonal imbalance is endometriosis, fibroids in the uterus, cysts in the ovaries, polycystic ovarian syndrome, uterine and cervical problems. Let's go a little bit more serious. Breast cancer, uterine cancer, cervical cancer, ovarian cancer. Also, problems with the thyroid, depression. These are some of the symptoms of a female having a hormonal imbalance. What about a male? Yes, men have hormones too. I'm so glad there are some men here tonight. Not only because they have hormones, because they're living with the women. Every man has a mother, and many have wives and daughters. So it's very important, because sometimes the men think, oh, I don't need to be there. In fact, when I was in Fiji giving this meeting, a group of young men sat near the door. They said, if it gets too difficult, we're just leaving. But Proverbs 14 verse 6 says, knowledge is easy to him that understands. So my aim is to give you an understanding so you automatically have the knowledge on how to bring back the balance, which we'll look at tonight. What about a male? What are the symptoms of a male having a hormonal imbalance? It can be low sperm count, can be penile dysfunction, inability to hold an erection. Do you know the current figures are in Australia? 50% of men over the age of 50 are struggling with this one. Why? There is a reason. God didn't mean for sex to end at the age of 50. He meant that little delightful process to be a precious part of marriage right up into our latter years. There's a reason. There's a reason. Another symptom of a male having a hormonal imbalance can be prostate problems. Now that's almost a word that we didn't know what it meant 40 years ago. Osteoporosis in women and sometimes in men can also be a symptom of a hormonal imbalance. So you can see this is very far-reaching. So what I want to do this evening is I want to show you how the hormones are made, and I'm going to take you through this hormone pathway. Notice what our hormones are made from. Cholesterol. If your cholesterol levels go too low, you're going to have problems making your sex hormones. Would a man ever have considered that the cholesterol-lowering medication is contributing to his penile dysfunction? That's enough to get you off the cholesterol-lowering medication, isn't it? Our cholesterol... Quiet, please. Our cholesterol level should not go under 190. Ideally, they're up in the 200s. Now, I'd love to dive into this, but we're going to do that in our next class on the heart. So it's very important to have good cholesterol levels, because from our cholesterol, our hormones are made. From cholesterol, our body makes pregnenolone. From pregnenolone, our body makes progesterone. And progesterone's given the nickname mother. Why is progesterone given the nickname mother? Because from progesterone, the daughters are made, that's the estrogen. From progesterone, the sons are made, that's testosterone. And from progesterone, the adrenal hormones are made, they're your fight and flight hormones. So progesterone is a very important hormone. I'm going to explain how these hormones work in the monthly cycle. It's a 28-day cycle. But let me first introduce you to the two star players in this monthly cycle. We're gonna liken it to a dance, because it is like a dance. Different players come onto the stage at different times of the month. Now, one of the players is estrogen. I did have a colour on this. Let's get our colour. Help. Aha. Thanks, Father in heaven. Okay, so we've got that colour. Here it is. Yes, estrogen's going to be wearing a yellow dress in this dance. And estrogen's role in the body is that of a cell proliferator. Now, cell proliferator means causes massive cell growth. Now, as we go through this class and as we go through showing how the imbalance causes problems, this will start to make sense to you. So estrogen, its role is that of a cell proliferator. I liken estrogen to fire and water, good slave, bad master. Estrogen's important because it's the skinny young girl developing into a beautiful, shapely woman under the action of estrogen. But if the estrogen levels remain high, the beautiful, shapely woman can get out of shape. That's why I likened it to fire and water. Fire and water are important. But too much fire, the house burns down. Too much water, it's swept away in the flood. The other player in this dance is progesterone. And progesterone's going to be wearing a green outfit. Here's progesterone. I'm finally getting it together. And progesterone, it's often called happy hormone. Now, there's a saying in Australia that most women don't like. It's called happy wife, happy life. But the fact is, when the lady in the home is a happy lady, that affects the whole home. And I know one man said to his wife, "When you're happy, I'm happy." But there are many unhappy homes because the lady is lacking progesterone, and we're going to look at why that would be so. Now, day one of the monthly cycle, progesterone levels remain low. But day one of the monthly cycle, estrogen levels are also low. Low, yes. But by day 7, estrogen levels are rising. Now, the reason estrogen levels are rising on that second week is Estrogen, as a cell proliferator, is replacing the blood nest that came away in day one. You see, day one of the monthly cycle is the day that a woman begins to menstruate. So that first week of the monthly cycle, her blood nest comes away. But coming into the second week of the month, from day 7, estrogen levels rise. And there is a reason for that. Let's go to the stage where this monthly dance is played out. This is the uterus, they're the fallopian tubes, they're the ovaries, that is the cervix, this is the birth canal. So at this time of the month, with this rise in estrogen, it's causing, where are we? Come, play the game. There we go. Yes. This time of the month, estrogen as a cell proliferator is causing massive cell growth in the lining of the uterus. Once again, causing the blood nest to develop. Estrogen as a cell proliferator is also causing massive cell growth in the ovaries, causing eggs to develop, fully develop. Estrogen as a cell proliferator is also causing massive cell growth in the lining of the birth canal, causing a form of lubricant to build up in that area. Whew. Now, we have got our blood nest, we have got our lubricant, and we've got our eggs developing. But something happens around this time, is that by day 14, an egg, fully developed egg, bursts forth from the ovaries. And the little filaments on the end of the fallopian tube pull that egg up. And those fallopian tubes are ever moving like this, causing the egg to move up, up, up. Now the hole where the egg bursts forth, it develops a blister. And that blister is a very important part of the balancing of the hormones. So that blister is called corpus luteum. And I've drawn it in green because corpus luteum is the main site of progesterone production in a woman's body. Can you see the importance of a woman ovulating every month? Because when she ovulates or releases that eggs, it causes a development of corpus luteum, and corpus luteum is the main site of progesterone in a woman's body. So that ovulation every month helps to maintain mother hormone. And when mother hormone is maintained, she keeps all of the hormones in the balance they should be. So by day 14, with the development of corpus luteum, we now have a rise in progesterone. And there is a reason for that. We'll go over to our stage where this is being played out. What is the reason for the rise in progesterone? Progesterone has a ripening effect on the lining of the uterus. Progesterone also heightens a woman's mood at this time of the month, being happy hormone, even to the point of increasing her sexual desire at this time of the month. But progesterone has another effect, and I'm going to magnify the cervix. The cervix looks like a soft little cushion, and in the middle is a hole. And we're going to look at this from sideways. So the cervix looks like this from sideways. Under the action of progesterone, that rise coming into the third week of the month, the sides come up a little tighter, and a special form of lubricant is released around the cervix. Now, this lubricant is designed to facilitate the entry of sperm up into the uterus. So you can see the stage is set for the entry of man. Did you know that between 2 and 500 million sperm are released with one ejaculation? It's the smallest cell in the human body. Sometimes up to half come straight back out. So then we're left with the other half. And if that sperm meet this cervix, difficult to gain entry, but it's so small, a few usually do. But if the sperm meet this cervix, this lubricant literally grabs the sperm and shoots it up into the uterus. Got a long way to go. Long way to go. And some of them go down the wrong road and they basically die. But some of them go down the right road and aha, they've found their prize, which is the egg. And the covering of the egg looks like this. And what the sperm has to do, it has to nudge its way into one of those folds. Not easy. But when it does nudge its way in, all the other folds shut tight, chemicals are released that will kill off any other sperm that tries to gain entry. Sometimes 2 sperms come in at the same split second, and that's when the twins share the placenta. So what happens? What happens in the hormones? What happens to the hormones when conception takes place? When conception takes place, then progesterone levels can soar 200%. Don't we often say when a woman's pregnant, she's just blossoming? Her happy hormone levels are high. If a woman's not blossoming in pregnancy, it would indicate that her progesterone levels are low, and we will see there are reasons for that. So with this rise in progesterone, then the estrogen gets the message to go backstage. And so the estrogen levels come down as the progesterone levels high. So in week 2, it's estrogen that is the main player in the dance, causing the blood nest, causing the eggs, causing the lubricant. And we've got all that, and so now the message is given, you can go backstage now. And then with the development of corpus luteum, then we get the rise in progesterone. We have 3 estrogens, and estrone is called E1. And estrone has strong cell proliferator action. And estradiol is called E2, also having strong cell proliferator action. But estriol is the delicate estrogen, and it's estriol levels that rise in pregnancy. So in pregnancy, we've got this big rise in progesterone, but we've also got a rise in estriol. So what happens if the woman does not fall pregnant? If she does not fall pregnant, then by day 26, estrogen levels drop right down. By day 26, progesterone levels drop right down. And when those levels drop, the blood nest comes away. Because when those levels drop right down, the blood supply to the uterus is cut. And the blood nest comes away, and we are once again at day 1 of the monthly cycle. That's what the cycle should look like, but unfortunately today it doesn't often look like that. And so the million-dollar question is, why? Why doesn't it look like that? And we're going to have a look at why it doesn't look like that. So there's a few reasons why it doesn't look like that. But first of all, I want to comment for a moment on sperm. Sperm is an alien to a woman's body. And when sperm enters woman's body, her immune system rises to attack. But when sperm goes through the prostate gland of a man, it takes on an immune suppressant property. So when woman's immune system rises to attack, the immune suppressant property of sperm knocks back her immune system, and sperm survives. Otherwise, none of us would be here. But woman's body has memory, and every time her husband's sperm enters her, her immune system rises to attack, and then it goes, oh, it's husband, we'll just stand back. And sperm survives. But you can imagine how dangerous it can be in the area of anal sex. And also how dangerous it can be if a woman has multiple partners, because different sperms are constantly knocking down her immune system. But what I'd like to look at now is why. Why the hormones are out of balance. Why aren't we getting this cycle that I just showed you? So let's have a look at the reasons for this. Number one, 1957. Do you know what happened in 1957? The first contraceptive pill was introduced to women. Women wanted to be able to have sex without falling pregnant. 1960s is called the sexual revolution. But unfortunately, men and women have paid a very high price for this so-called sexual freedom. So I want to show you what this contraceptive pill does. I want to show you the effect it has on the body. So the pharmaceutical companies grow acres and acres of Mexican wild yam. And this Mexican wild yam contains a plant chemical called diosgenin. And in a laboratory, diosgenin can be converted to progesterone. It's called progesterone because it has an identical molecular structure to the progesterone that our body makes. So the pharmaceutical company cannot patent that. They have to create something new to patent it. So in about the late 50s, 60s, they made the pill out of synthetic estrogen. But within 10 years, problems were being revealed. Because when a woman takes this synthetic estrogen, what's happening to her estrogen levels? They're getting high. And when estrogen gets high, this cell proliferator action is causing massive cell growth in the uterus, causing that endometrium to wander. That's endometriosis. Fibroids in the uterus, cysts on the ovaries, lumps in the breast. Because these started to appear, they had to do something. And so in about the late 80s, they started to put a synthetic progesterone. They added a few more atoms in another area and came up with a synthetic progesterone. Has that helped? No. Because now that synthetic progesterone competes with our progesterone on progesterone receptor sites. So I want to show you what's happening. What's happening when a woman takes the pill? See, when a woman takes the pill with its synthetic estrogens, it causes a disruption in the balance, and the body goes, what's going on? Must be pregnant. And because it thinks it's pregnant, it doesn't release the egg. And if the egg is not released, corpus luteum's not being made. So week after week, after month, no release of egg, no corpus luteum's made. What's happening to progesterone? It's going down. Week after week, after month, after year, with the synthetic estrogen, where's the estrogen going? It's going up. And unfortunately, we have now a problem. It's called estrogen dominance, progesterone deficiency. So progesterone is sitting down there, and where's estrogen sitting? Estrogen's sitting up here. Estrogen, with its cell proliferator action, causing massive cell growth in the reproductive organs. There's the fibroids in the uterus. There's the cysts on the ovaries. There's the endometrium wandering all through the abdominal wall. You know what that's called? That's called endometriosis. And every month, when the levels drop and the bloodness comes away, all of these pockets bleed, but they've got nowhere to go. So the woman goes through excruciating pain at period time. Estrogen, with its cell proliferator action, causing massive cell growth in the breast. There's the fibrous lumps, there's the cystic growth, there's the breast cancer. Estrogen, with its cell proliferator action, even to the point of causing uterine cancer, cervical cancer, and cancer in the birth canal. And the Australian Health Department have stated, also the Cancer Foundation in Australia have stated, estrogen is a known human carcinogen. In other words, what is that? This high estrogen is feeding cancers, and high estrogen opposes thyroid function. How many women are on the pill in their 20s and now they're in the 50s, 60s and they've got thyroid problems? The curse, causeless, shall not come. No problem happens without a cause. It's a big contributing factor to all these issues. Premenstrual tension. What's that caused by? Low progesterone. How does the woman feel the week before her periods? Watch out, she'll bite your head off. I said to one lady, do you have premenstrual tension? She said, no, I just hate my husband for a week every month. She's got it. There it is, down there. And how does that woman feel? She hates herself. She doesn't understand it. The body runs according to precision balance. Can you see that when this balance is thrown out, we got problems? This high estrogen as a cell proliferator can also cause acne. This is in young men and in young women. And this rise in estrogen can also cause this capillary constriction in the brain. There's migraines at period time. And this cell proliferator action causing a woman to put on weight. It's almost impossible to lose weight when estrogen levels are high. And you can have 100 women with a hormonal imbalance and they all can have different symptoms. And you ask the lady that was on the pill for 5 years, not knowing what it was doing to her. In fact, told this is the best thing that ever happened to women. Now they have sexual freedom. No one ever talked about the dangers. The baby boomers. The baby boomers are now, which the pill was first given to, they're in their 60s, 70s. How are they faring? Hot flushes. What's hot flushes? That estrogen can cause capillary dilation as well in the blood, causing the blood to rush to the skin, and the husband knows it because all the blankets get thrown off in the middle of the night, and then 10 minutes later they all get pulled back on. And he's a lovely, patient husband. He just lies there. One lady said to me, she said, I'm the CEO of a company, I'm giving a board meeting, and all of a sudden I get a hot flush. The perspiration's coming out. She said it is embarrassing. So she went to the doctor. And so he had an answer for her. What did he give her? He gave her hormone replacement therapy. What's hormone replacement therapy? More synthetic hormones. And the hot flushes stop and she's happy. Why? Because the body thinks it's pregnant with these synthetic hormones. And so instead of putting all of its energy to the skin, it goes internal. 6 years later, she's got a lump on the breast. She goes to the doctor. She's got breast cancer. So the doctor takes her off immediately. Why does he do that? He knows that it can cause breast cancer. And if you say to the doctor, why do you do it? He said, well, she was suffering and it brought her relief. That's true. And he says, not every woman will get breast cancer, that's true, but you ask the woman, what's your choice? Hot flushes or breast cancer? What's the answer? Bring on the flushes. I'll get a black lace flan. I'll have a shower 3 or 4 times a day. But what I'm going to show you today is how you can conquer this. How you can, by giving the body right conditions, you can restore that balance. That's the good news. Because God made our body to do that. He made it to run according to precision balance. And if it's been thrown out, the good news is, if you give it the right conditions, it can bring that balance back. And we've seen thousands of women and men, again, regain quality of life through restoring that balance. But I've met some women who've never been on the pill or HRT, and they've got obvious hormonal imbalance. What causes a chicken to be fully developed in 5 weeks? If it's in the chicken, it's in the egg. And the Australian Health Department, they forbid farmers for giving their cattle growth stimulants. But we had a cattle farmer's wife attend our program. She said they knock on our door once a month pushing the growth stimulants, because the cattle grow quicker, they can get them to market quicker. And they tell them when to stop so it's not picked up in the blood test. But if it's not in the blood, but it's in the tissues. And if it's in the cattle, it's in the products. It's in the milk. So if it's in the meat, it's also in the products. Well, what about fish? Well, when you've got 80% of women on the pill or HRT, and in some countries, they're the figures, and they're going to the toilet, and the sewage is going out to sea, and the fish are feeding on the sewage, and in some fish farms, they're also given growth stimulants. Lentils are sounding more attractive all the time, aren't they? But there are some people who have never eaten meat, never been on the pill, and they've got obvious hormonal imbalance. Plastics. Now, plastics contain something called xenoestrogens. Xeno meaning estrogen mimickers. In the molecular structure of estrogen, there's a phenyl ring. And that phenyl ring unlocks the door to get the estrogen into the cell. And many plastics today contain bisphenyl A. You see the phenyl? It's got the key, it gets in. And another one is nonylphenyl. Now, my brother, he's 2 years older than me, and when he was 18, he got his first car, second-hand Zephyr. This is really in the 60s. And the dashboard was cracked. Now, those from my era, do you remember when the dashboard used to crack in second-hand cars? Have you noticed the dashboards don't crack anymore? That's because they got nonylphenyl in them, making the plastic soft. That's what the phenyl does, it makes the plastic soft. So my brother just put turquoise fur over the... and a cow, and the head goes up and down. That's very 60s. So we are almost bombarded with these xenoestrogens today. They're everywhere. And they are also in the fabrics, the nylon, acrylic, polyester, nap. And you won't nap very well if you sleep with nylon, acrylic or polyester. And be careful what you're wearing. Be careful what you're wearing, especially ladies. You see, men, they usually wear cotton underpants, cotton undershirts, cotton shirts, cotton jeans. But the ladies like the pretty things. And a lot of pretty things are made out of nylon, acrylic and polyester. So be careful what is touching your skin, because your skin is a moving, breathing organ and it absorbs what touches it. So can you see it's coming in so many areas? Be very careful on the children, what you're dressing the children in. So you can get some really nice natural fabrics today. One is viscose. Viscose is bamboo. Another one is modal, M-O-D-A-L. That's the cellulose spun from the birch tree. Another one is rayon. That's made out of wood pulp. So be careful on the clothes that you're wearing. You might have to get a magnifying glass, but read your labels. One lady said, "Barbara, I'm going to have to throw all my clothes out." Well, the good news is there are thrift stores and you can get some things at a very good price. You just have to search out. But little by little, start to change that. Can you imagine if every single person here, every woman here refused to buy any more bras made out of polyester, nylon and acrylic and started to buy cotton, started to buy modal, started to buy viscose? We, the consumer, have power. Where's your dollar going? It's important to ask that. But little by little, like the dripping tap on a stone, they are contributing to the hormonal imbalance. Chemicals. It's important to be very mindful of your exposure to chemicals. Ladies, be careful on the products that you're putting on your skin, personal care products. It's time to read labels. And if you don't know what the words mean, just go to Google and just print them in. You'll understand what those big names mean, those big words mean. Also, with your food, go organic as much as possible. There's a herbicide that's commonly used, sadly. It's called Roundup, and the active component in that is glyphosate. So in 2015, the Sri Lankan government banned Roundup because of the amount of rice farmers who were getting endocrine cancers. Notice endocrine, hormonal, because that's how Roundup works on the plants. Anyway, in my book, Sustain Me, my graphic designer, he searches out everything I say to get the quote, to get the verification. And he contacted me, he said, "Barbara, you wouldn't believe it, in 2019 the Sri Lankan government once again agreed to use Roundup." Did it suddenly become safe? No, not at all. We don't want to even think about what happened as to why they suddenly legalised that again. And that's why we're the doctor. You see, we're the one that chooses what we do to our bodies, what we allow into our bodies, and what we do not allow into our bodies. We really are the masters of our own destiny. But many people are sick, not realising what they've been doing to their body. Do you know another big problem, especially with these polyester blankets? I have to tell you, someone's made a fortune out of polyester blankets. They don't even break down in the landfill. And when you try and burn them, then you're putting chemical fumes into the air. They're nasty, nasty. We need someone in government that's going to say stop. Isn't that true? Let's start supporting the linen, the cotton, the wool, the sheep farmers. That's who we want to start supporting. With some people, it's a bit of all this. For some people, it's just the pill. So it can be many, many things. And this is what I find with most people, when they're not well, it's often not just one thing. It can be a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Be careful what you're cleaning your bathroom with. In my laundry cupboard, you'll find white vinegar and you'll find sodium bicarbonate and a bottle of eucalyptus oil. And no, the grandchildren can't get that lid off. But if they want a drink of vinegar or a spoonful of sodium bicarbonate, they're not going to die. So have a look in every area. Some people I know just wash their clothes with sodium bicarbonate. That's cheap. And I was talking to a dentist recently, and they said, just put your toothbrush in sodium bicarbonate. And they advise people to rinse their mouth out after eating and before bed with a teaspoon of sodium bicarb in a cup of water. It's great for preventing tooth decay and also the build-up of tartar or plaque, you call it, on the teeth. Yeah, and no one likes to get that taken off. So these are all lots of things that are contributing to this hormonal imbalance. So the million-dollar question now is, how can we turn this around? So number one is to eliminate. Eliminate anything that could contribute to this imbalance. So how are we going to stop having babies popping up everywhere? Well, what did they used to do? They used to use natural birth control. And this was in a day when women actually knew their bodies a little bit better. You see, sex is two-part, contraception should be two-part. So let me show you the woman's role. The woman's role really is to understand her body and to know what's happening in her body at different times of the month. And what her body will do, it'll give her 3 signs. One sign is her temperature will change. It's as simple as a woman taking her temperature before she gets out of bed every day and charting it. In my book, Sustain Me, in the hormone chapter, there's a QR code and you can, I think, go onto that and get a chart. So women can download a chart. And what the woman will find is that her temperature, I'll go to a spare bit on the board. Here we are. What her temperature will do is it'll do this. Every day it'll go like this, and then just before she ovulates, it'll drop and go up onto a higher plane. Now that drop and up onto a higher plane is telling her, here we go, is telling her that her ovulation has begun. And with most women, it'll be around day 14. Some women it might be day 13, some women it might be day 15. The second sign is that, we'll come here, next page to do this. So the second sign is that her cervix changes. And when her cervix changes, when the cervix starts to come up a little tighter, that's her sign that she has begun to ovulate, because it's a sign that progesterone levels are high. The third sign is that the vaginal mucus changes. So when a woman's estrogen is high, it's not as profuse, it's usually white. And when progesterone levels rise, then the vaginal lubricant is clear, stringy, and more profuse. So they're her 3 signs. Now, at first she's got nothing to compare it to, but every day, as she monitors herself and goes to her charts and marks it, she will find that as the days go by, that she will ovulate around this week here. But when she charts those 3 signs, it allows her to define it. So she says to her husband, I'm safe, I'm not safe. In this week, I'm safe. And so when she's not safe, when she's ovulating, that's when her husband can either master the art of withdrawal or wear a condom. And I was reading an article on Italian women, Italian men. And these Italian men prided themselves in not getting their women pregnant because they mastered the art of withdrawal. And my daughter Jessica and her husband Matthew, they were married for about 3.5 years before baby Amethyst came along. How nice that a young couple can have a few years to get to know each other before the little darlings appear. Because they had mastered the art of natural birth control. Then we don't have to use that dangerous pill. So we eliminate the pill by using natural birth control, eliminate the HRT. Drugs never cure disease. They change the form and location. And what I'm showing you here, it will allow a woman to stop the HRT. Stop meat and its products. If you want to eat meat and its products, must be organic. I think it's too dangerous to eat any other way today. I think it's impossible to eliminate the plastic. It's handy stuff. My plastic bottle is a hard plastic, so it's BPA free. That means bisphenol A free. Glass is a great one. Stainless steel is a great one. And We went into a health shop today. What was it named? Pilgrims. I couldn't go 5 steps without someone recognising me. They said, "Is it really you?" They said, "What are you doing here?" Which is really nice. It shows there's a lot of people who are interested in getting better health. But they've got a great range of products. They've got a great range of stainless steel bottles. Great present for little kids. Just get them a little one, which is in maybe an 8 or 16 ounce bottle. They can get really pretty ones. That's where we've got to have our mind on, is these little kids. Because we think we've got a problem today. You wait another 10 years. So if someone has a baby, a great present is to buy them a packet of, you call them diapers, made out of starch. Do you know you can get them? They might be a bit more expensive. Give them a packet of that. Give them a, you call it pacifier, yeah, made out of rubber. You can get them. Give them little wooden toys, rattles. Look what many toys that babies are given. They're made out of plastic. And so when they open the packet, and they see the diapers and the rubber pacifier and the wooden rattle, it's going to be a bit different to every other present, and they might look at you and you can say, "I'm concerned for your baby's sexuality." They'll be interested. Because really, that's where it's got to start. It's got to start around there. So eliminate the plastics as much as possible. Eliminate the chemicals out of your home. If you don't turn the tap off, you're still going to be mopping up in the other corner. Stop the causes. Number 2, the liver has the ability to eliminate excess estrogen out of the body, and it'll do it down one of 2 pathways. And the pathway that eliminates the excess estrogen, it's called the hydroxy-2 pathway. It's stimulated by a plant chemical found in cabbage called indoles. So it can be as simple as eating something from the cabbage family every day. So broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts. We had a delicious lunch today. I think it's in the back of my books, Sustain Me. It's like an Alfredo sauce made out of cashews with white beans and broccoli. Do you call it broccoli? Broccoli. Sorry, I hope you can understand me. But it's like a little green tree. Cabbage, cauliflower, sauerkraut. We talked about sauerkraut yesterday and how great it is for the gut flora. As simple as eating something from that every day. Also, flaxseed, grinding up the flaxseed and putting it in your smoothie or sprinkling it on your breakfast every day. It is high in a plant chemical called lignans, and lignans also stimulate the pathway to release excess estrogen. Another one is your vitamin Bs, vitamin B6, B9 and B12. And initially, if someone has a hormonal imbalance, they may need to take a supplement of that. Licorice, and not the candy licorice, but the herb licorice. If you've got high blood pressure, forget about that one. You can use all the rest. So number 1 is turning off the tap. Number 2 is stimulating the liver to get rid of the excess estrogen. And number 3 is applying a wild yam cream. And I find every country I go into, they have their own or different varieties of wild yam cream. I know that you can get an Anna's yam cream, you can get a Comfort yam cream. I think the Comfort one's an Australian one. I know an OK Be Healthy, Jacqueline has a yam cream. And also my daughters in Australia make a Treloon. When my husband heard the title, he said, "What does that mean?" But Treloon means 3 of the lunar cycle. So just search out the wild yam creams. Just make sure that their ingredients are all natural. There are some quite nice ones, as long as they predominantly contain the yam cream. And when that yam cream is applied to the skin, the fat cells take it up and it stimulates the biochemical pathway that your body uses to make its own progesterone. And remember what making your own progesterone means. Making your own progesterone means that when you boost mother hormone automatically brings balance into the others. And the beauty of mother hormone, progesterone, she has a protective effect on the testosterone. That's why it's very important for males too, if they're showing any signs, low sperm count, penile dysfunction. In fact, one man said to me, I don't know how to say this, but this stuff just puts lead in my pencil. Okay. He said, I'm not performing like I did when I'm 20, but he said, I'm getting better at it. So progesterone, it's the key, the number one hormone in men and in women. And remember, progesterone, as most mothers do with their sons, play a protective role with testosterone. Now, if estrogen levels are high and you boost progesterone, it brings the estrogen levels down. There is no toxic dose of progesterone, but there is many toxic effects of the high estrogen because of its cell proliferator action. So if a woman has fibroids, she's got fibroids because of high estrogen feeding them. So what that woman, all she needs to really do is get on the yam cream, boost that progesterone, which will bring that estrogen down back to its proper levels. And she can also wear castor oil compresses on the abdomen. Castor oil penetrates deep and will break up unnatural formations. It'll even break up a bone spur. Not overnight, of course. Didn't grow overnight and it won't go away overnight. Might have been there 3 years. If it's been there 3 years, the bone spur, it might take 3 months. That's the good news. It won't take 3 years. But we've met many women who've been able to shrink those fibroids down by applying the yam cream to get that estrogen back where it should be and wearing the castor oil compresses for at least 5 hours a day. Consistency is the key. I've said that so much that when I start typing it in my iPad, it just comes up. Consistency is the key. Just as little by little by little the hormones were thrown out, it's going to be little by little by little to bring them back into their proper balance. So the wild yam cream is applied twice a day, morning and night, and usually about the size of a pea. And some of them, I know my daughters in Australia, they've got a pump pack. Some have a pump pack, but it'll tell you how much. Usually a size of a pea. Inside of arms one time, inside of thighs another time, abdomen another time, chest another time. So you alternate the sites of application. In about 1% of cases, there might be a little reaction of a rash. It's not rare. It's not common. And it's not totally rare. But if ever that happens, I advise just applying it to the soles of the feet. And many women have told me they've applied it to the soles of the feet for a month, and they start applying it in other places and the body's happy. See, it's part of listening. If you get a little rash, don't apply it again. Apply it to the soles of the feet. That's how you listen to the body. It's applied for 3 weeks a month. So where a woman applies the yam cream, she applies it for these 3 weeks. So if a woman is still menstruating, she stops when she's menstruating. So she applies it for these 3 weeks here. If a woman is not menstruating anymore, she just chooses 1 week of the month where she doesn't apply it. And a lot of women will choose either the first or the last week of the month where they don't apply the cream. A jar of cream often lasts 3, sometimes 4 months, and usually it takes about a year. of applying the cream before the hormones are fully balanced back. It doesn't mean a woman won't get results sooner than that. One lady said her blood loss halved after 1 month of applying the cream. That's good news. And how many women have had their uteruses taken out because of heavy blood loss? They didn't need to remove that uterus. All they needed to do was rebalance the hormones and possibly apply the castor oil compresses. The castor oil compresses will penetrate deep, and the castor oil compresses will break up those cysts on the ovaries. They'll break up the fibroids in the uterus. They'll break up the polyps. They'll break up the lumps on the breasts. They penetrate very, very deep, and little by little by little, they break up those unnatural formations. What about a man? A man is not cyclic, so a man just applies it twice a day, every day. In fact, Cheryl Selman, in her book Short Hormone Heresy, she says, men are like the sun. They rise every morning, conquer the day, go down every night. Whereas women are like the moon. Sometimes they're full, sometimes they're half, sometimes they're a slither. Women are cyclic, and so women keep the cycle. Whereas men, they just apply it every day. Why would a man apply it? He would apply it for low sperm count. He would apply it for penile dysfunction. He would apply it for prostate problems. And we had one man attend our program, and he had prostate cancer, and he was getting a hormone injection every 3 months. He'd developed breasts, he was having hot flushes. And so upon hearing this lecture, he made a decision, because remember, I am the master of my destiny. I am the one that chooses what I do and what I do not do to my body. Don't let anyone pressure you any other way. Remember what you do? You say, thank you so much for your advice. I'm going to seriously consider this, and you leave. Because it's your God-given right to do what you do to your body. Now, what he also did, he also learnt about the sustain me principles, the basic laws of health. He also learnt the importance of getting off his coffee. Oh, rumble, rumble. Did a few people leave? He learned about easing off the coffee. Little by little by little. He also learnt about the importance of not having his nightly red wine. He learnt about the importance of drinking more water, of going to bed a little bit earlier, of implementing an exercise program. So his wife emailed me 10 months later. She said, my husband's lost weight, he's very happy. His breasts have gone down, his hot flushes have stopped, and his testosterone levels are the best they've been for years. Isn't that good news? So simple. You see, there's only one wonder cure, and that is this body. This incredible body, how it revives, restores, and rebalances when we give it the right conditions. Something else very important, not often discussed, and I explore this a little bit more detail in my book, Sustain Me, is that the progesterone stimulates bone-building cells. They're called osteoblast, bone, new bone, whereas estrogen stimulates osteoclast. Now, when they're in the proper balance, the osteoclast takes away the old and the progesterone brings in the new. But if estrogen levels are high, like on this illustration here, too much old bone is taken away, and when progesterone comes down here, there's not enough new bone to replace it. What's that called? Osteoporosis. Don't take Fosamax. That's what they give women for osteoporosis, because you know what it does? Causes the jaw to break down. Eesh. Drugs never cure disease. They just change the form and location. And we've seen many women restore their bone strength by implementing the Sustain Me principles, stopping the coffee. Yes, it's demineralizing those bones. It's pulling the minerals out. So they're stopping the coffee, stop at the sugar. Yeah, that pulls it out. I don't get much of a reaction as sugar compared to coffee. I've seen many women restore their bones, no matter what age, by going on the yam cream to boost progesterone, which boosts osteoblast cells, whether they be 9 or 90. Implementing the laws of health, choose your heart. Being fit is hard work. Being obese is hard work. Choose your heart. I had some dentistry done today. And I had a bit of an old filling drilled out and a new one put in. There was a bit of a crack there. And you know what the dentist said to me? He said there was no decay and your tooth was so strong. All he needed to do was refill it. And I just said, thank you, body. It's all the greens I eat. It's that lack of coffee. Don't throw rotten eggs at me. You see, there is a result. I don't eat sugar. I exercise every day. I do everything I know to keep this body in good working order. We are the master of our destiny. Can't blame genes anymore. Can't blame the germ anymore. Who can you blame? But you know, today's the first day of the rest of your life. Sorry, you're not ignorant anymore. And what I love about this is that it's so simple. It's so simple, and it's within the grasp of each one of us to once again restore that hormonal imbalance. One lady said, thank you for giving me my daughter back. Because her little girl started to menstruate and, wow, she was like a little terror. And she grew horns. She said within a couple of months she had her happy daughter back again on the yam cream. I've had men say to me, thank you for giving me my wife back. No, I didn't give the wife back. They implemented this. In fact, you couldn't get the wild yam cream. We used to do the Annas all the time. And one man was ringing up the health retreat in Living Springs and he kept saying, is it available yet? My wife, she's got to have it. We've also seen many, especially women, get off their antidepressants. Because remember what progesterone, what effect it has on the body? Happy hormone. That's the cause of postnatal depression. It's lack of progesterone. It's not lack of antidepressants. It's lack of progesterone. Not in every case, but it's often a factor. And there's no toxic dose of progesterone. What if you go on the cream and you don't need to? Well, can you have too much happy hormone? I'd like to suggest we don't have enough. And that's the beauty of lifestyle and dietary changes and implementing the herbs. If it doesn't work, you've lost nothing. But I have to tell you, we have seen it have incredible effects again and again and again. We're going to have a break now. Now, in our next class, if you have a heart, you should be there. Thank you.
Bart, you're going to sing. Okay. Good evening, everyone. It's time to get started again. I checked with Barbara O'Neill, and she's ready to get started. All right, if everyone can find your seat, whether you're in this sanctuary, this room, or in the foyer or downstairs, we're going to get started. I want to share something with you. I've shared before, and you'll just have to pardon me if it's the fifth time I've said this, but I meet people that are here, many of you that have purchased products thinking it's from Barbara O'Neill. So you do need to be very careful. It's happening to quite a few people. In fact, a relative of mine who lives in another state, lives in Texas, contacted me and was asking about this event, and she had purchased something she thought was from Barbara O'Neill, and it's not. So if you go use the bulletin, and on the back of the paper that was passed out, it has the web address, haydenlakeadventist.org. And like I mentioned before, if you go to our webpage, right on the front, as you first bring it up, is the live stream. If you see the big picture of Barbara O'Neill, it says live stream, just click on that. And then just to the left of that at the bottom is another picture of Barbara O'Neill. It's a smaller box, and it says Barbara O'Neill official website. If you click on there, it'll take you directly to her website. And then you can go to the store, and then you can, I believe you can purchase things from the website. I think there's some construction happening with it. I was talking to Ricky, her assistant. And so, but there's a phone number you can call, I believe, and then you can get some materials ordered, okay? So just be careful when when you're excited and you wanted to buy some products, that you go to her official website. Because you'll get scammed, and several people have talked to me even here tonight and have bought products and ended up realizing it's not from Barbara O'Neill. So there's a lot of people out there trying to take your money and offer you sugar pills. All right. I owe you an apology tonight. Do you accept apologies? Okay, good. I'm grateful that you're forgiving. I forgot to announce that we have special music. So Bart and Lucy have already forgiven me, right? So he's going to come up, we're going to have special music, and then Barbara's going to come forward. Oh, one more thing, there's a donation box in the back. Again, the seminar is completely free, but people have asked me if they can make a donation. You'll see the wooden pillar as you leave, and it has a note on it. So enjoy, grateful you're here. One more question, Bart. How many of you are planning to come tomorrow night? Okay, great. How many of you are planning to come Saturday morning? Okay, there's a few of you. Okay, great. Bart, well, enjoy the music.
I've been reading Barbara's book, the one that says Sustain Me. The T there stands for Trust in Divine Power. It's on page 14. Oh, I like that page. Years ago, a lady named Annie Hawks wrote a song that you know as I Need Thee Every Hour. I call it Annie's Prayer. I'd like to sing that for you. I need thee every hour, most gracious Lord. Oh, tender voice like thine can peace afford. I need thee, oh, I need thee. Every hour I need thee. Oh, bless me now, my Savior. I come to thee. I need thee every hour, in joy or pain. Come quickly and abide, or life is vain. I need I need thee every hour, most holy one. Oh, make me thine indeed, thou blessed Son. I need thee, oh, I need thee, every hour I need thee. Oh, bless me now, my Savior, I come to thee.
Thank you very much. I'm going to sing like that in heaven. So thank you for coming. And what we're going to be looking at now is the heart. And this is a very important class because the heart disease is the number one killer in the world today. And so then the question arises, what are the authorities doing to reduce heart disease? And they are. Let's assess what they're doing. So number one, and this began in probably about the 70s, 80s, put everyone on a fat-free diet, is that right? Or low fat. And tell everyone that they've got to stop eating butter and got to start eating margarine. Okay, has that reduced heart disease? At all? Not at all. Not at all. In fact, it's made no difference to heart disease. And what's the definition of insanity? To do what you've always done and expect different results. But what has risen is cancer. What has risen is dementia, Alzheimer's. In Australia, 1,700 new cases of Alzheimer's is being diagnosed every week. Nah, that one hasn't worked. Where did it come from? It came from a man named Ancel Keys, who in Minneapolis put forth the theory that fat causes heart disease. And in his book, The Great Cholesterol Con, Dr. Malcolm Kendrick, who's a cardiovascular surgeon, he quotes Ancel Keys as saying, "We're pretty sure the research is going to come." Is that true science? It's not science at all. And Malcolm Kendrick says, "I'm still waiting for the proof that saturated fat causes heart disease." Let's go back to before the Industrial Revolution, which is the early 1920s. Let's go back and look in the South Pacific Islands. They've been eating coconut oil and coconut every meal for centuries. No heart disease, no strokes, not high blood pressure. Let's have a look at the northern countries in Europe, Norway, Switzerland, Sweden, France, who've mostly got their fats from cows, butter, cream, cheeses, very little heart disease. Let's go to the Mediterranean where they eat a lot of olive oil and have for centuries. No heart disease. So when did this heart disease, this high blood pressure, strokes, really start to come in high amounts after the Industrial Revolution? Well, what did they do in the Industrial Revolution? They started to create a lot of chemicals. Chemicals in cleaning products, chemicals in clothes. That's when the nylon, acrylic and polyester created in a chemical laboratory. They started to develop high heat and chemical equipment to be able to extract oil from hard seeds. And what were we told? We were told, stop eating the saturated fat, start eating the polyunsaturated fat. Is that right? Do you know those altered fats, those polyunsaturated fats, are some of the most dangerous because they're damaged oils? And I'm going to show you in a minute what they do in the blood vessel. But let's continue our investigation of what steps have been taken to reduce heart disease. Put everyone on over the age of 50 on aspirin. Has that reduced heart disease? Not at all. But the three main side effects of aspirin are it causes stomach bleeds, so it's a big contributing factor to stomach ulcers, causes brain bleeds, that's deterioration of the brain, causes eye bleeds, causing a deterioration of eyesight. No, it hasn't worked. So number 3, and by the way, has that worked? Not at all, not at all. Okay, everyone that has a heart attack, they're put on the statin drugs. What are statin drugs? Statin drugs are cholesterol-lowering medication. So what I want to look at now is cholesterol. What is it? The liver makes cholesterol, and the liver makes cholesterol according to the body's requirements for cholesterol. And as Dr. Malcolm Kendrick states in his book, The Great Cholesterol Con, he says for the first time, normal levels of a normal vital body substance is being called a disease. That's cholesterol. Now there are 2 main cholesterols in the body. One is low-density lipoprotein, and low-density lipoprotein is called the bad cholesterol. And the other main cholesterol is high-density lipoprotein, or HDL. It's called the good guy. And you know why it's called the good guy? Because it's the carrier of excess cholesterol back to the liver. Well, what's LDL's role? Because it has a purpose. And God doesn't make anything that will hurt us. It has a purpose. LDL cholesterol is the repairer. It's the repairer and the rebuilder. So you're always going to find it where there's a need for rebuilding and repairing. So I'd like to show you in the blood vessel what it does. So here's the blood vessel. And because of its low density, LDL is always found on the edge. And because of its high density, HDL is always found in the middle. Can't really see that, so we're going to make it this colour too. I have in my library at home, and all of these books are quoted in my book Sustain Me, in the chapter Love Your Heart with All Your Heart. So these are the titles of some of the books. The Great Cholesterol Con by Dr. Malcolm Kendrick. The Great Cholesterol Lie by Dr. Dwight Lundell. They are both cardiovascular surgeons. And Dr. Dwight Lundell has performed about 10,000 bypasses. And notice the title of his book, The Great Cholesterol Lie. These professionals are blowing the whistle on this myth. And he's not a Dr. Johnny Bowden, but what he is a nutritionist and a personal trainer, fitness guy. His book's called The Great Cholesterol Myth. And Dr. Peter Dingle from Australia, his book's called The Great Cholesterol Deception. There's another book called The Great Cholesterol Hoax. We're running out of names. And so Dr. Natasha Campbell McBride, her book's called Put Your Heart in Your Mouth because there wasn't another name. And in her book, the Put Your Heart in Your Mouth, she spends the first 3 chapters showing and listing all of the things that break down that arterial wall. So what breaks down that arterial wall? Environmental poisons. And I think you'll agree, even from some of them that we've listed in these classes, there's a lot of them. They're everywhere. And they come into the blood, whether we breathe them in, whether it comes in through our skin or whether we ingest it. They're coming in and they're breaking down up the endothelium cells that line the arteries. They're damaging them and breaking them up. Mold. Mold is another one that can do it. Okay, students, who's going to plug up the holes? It's the LDL. So the LDL comes along because that's its job. It's the repairer and the rebuilder. It's coming along to plug up the holes. But the person doesn't realise what's causing the damage. They don't realise the clothes they're wearing, what they're washing their clothes in, what they're eating, what they're breathing in, their personal care products. They don't realise. They don't realise the mouldy bathroom or the mouldy basement, what they're breathing in. And so the damage continues. And what's happening in the arteries? It's building up and up and up and up and up and up and up. Something else is happening. All through the blood, we have little protein molecules. And when a person is on a high carbohydrate diet, yesterday in our class, we looked at an illustration of a high carbohydrate diet. Cereal and toast for breakfast, sandwiches for lunch, pasta for tea, donuts, pretzels, cookies, mid-morning, mid-afternoon. That is a high carbohydrate diet, high sugar diet. And so too much sugar comes into the blood. And what that high sugar does is it connects with these protein molecules. And these little, they're called ages, these little globules and ages, they start sticking on the wall of the artery and they can move. And let's say we've got a very narrow one and one dislodges and it's blocked. If that blockage is in the carotid arteries, that's a stroke. If it's in the heart muscle, that's your cardiac arrest. That's the number one cause. But as you can see, it's not one thing that causes heart disease. It's a little bit of this and a little bit of that and a little bit of that. And little by little, they're building up. Let me give you an illustration. I have a friend in Australia. His name's Dr. David Harris. And he's a craniosacral chiropractor. And he's very, very fit. He goes to Europe every year, cycles 200 Ks, loves cycling. He's at this age of his story, which was maybe 7 years ago. He's in his mid-60s. He also plays the panpipes. His ancestry is Scottish. He's vegetarian, plant-based, and he was getting breathless. So a friend of him, a doctor, a cardiologist, said, I want to do an angiogram on you. And he discovered that David's arteries, 80% occlusion. Now that illustration there is 80%. Maybe not down there, that's getting to 90%. 80% occlusion, 80% blockage of his artery. 2 of his arteries were 80%. So they rushed him in, gave him 2 bypasses. It's quite a serious operation. They saw the chest bones open. I used to work in operating theatre. I assisted in a bypass one day. Do you know what they do then? They cut that artery out, then they cut one from the leg and then sew it into there. That's what they do. That's a bypass. Closed it up and sent him home. Didn't mention anything about diet. But you know what they did put him on? They put him on the protocol. Have you seen the protocol? No matter who you are, no matter what your age is, no matter what your fitness is, you're given it. It's blood pressure medication, blood thinning medication, and cholesterol lowering medication. Am I right? No matter who you are. So I was talking to him a week later. He said, Barb, it's genetics. I said, genetics loads the gun, Dave. Lifestyle pulls the trigger. So he booked in 2 weeks later to do our health program. And so I was intrigued. You see, I was seeing a man, consulting with him about 10 years ago in Melbourne. I said, what do you do for a job? He said, I'm a private investigator. I said, so am I. We should all be private investigators. Is that right? because the curse causeless shall not come. Those arteries don't just block up for no reason. That is unscientific. So if ever you're told your health condition is just, it's just you, it's just genetics, you've got every right to say, excuse me, but that's very unscientific, because there is a cause. And just because you don't know the cause, it doesn't mean there isn't a cause. So I began to investigate. I said, tell me about your childhood, Dave. He said, well, I had quite a happy childhood, but my parents both chain smoked. Aha. It is estimated there are about 7,000 chemicals in a cigarette now. And you probably have heard, read that passive smoke can be even more dangerous. So this was in the 50s, 60s, where people just smoked in the kitchen, in the home. You know, there's a few more people are a bit more aware today. So what's happening in the young David's arteries? What's happening is getting little bits of damage. Yep, from the smoke and do you know, his parents didn't know, he didn't know. So I'd like to suggest that by the age of about 15, I wouldn't be surprised if David had about 20% build-up on his arteries. But 20% build-up, the person would hardly know it. You see, the blood is carrying the oxygen, and breathlessness is not the only sign. And someone can have other problems with breathlessness, but it is one of the signs because the blood is the carrier of oxygen. So when you get a restriction of blood flow, you're getting a restriction of oxygen. And then he told me that in 2010, he wanted to put on muscle because he's an athlete. And he was eating what many vegetarians eat. Cereal and toast for breakfast, sandwiches for lunch, pasta for tea, and he loved sugar biscuits. Organic, of course. But it's still sugar and it's still wheat, etc. And those little ages are floating round with that high sugar, but something else came into the equation. And he wanted to build up muscle because cereal and toast for breakfast, sandwiches for lunch, pasta for tea, that's almost 100% carbohydrate diet. And I believe it's that diet that has driven many to go to the other extreme, which is the carnivore diet. But we need protein. Remember the 3 essential food groups? Fibre, protein and fats. So he thought he had to stop the fats, so he's hardly having any fats. And his wife doesn't like cooking much, so they're just doing the fast food, which is we looked at the other day. So he was having very little protein, almost no fats. So he decided to eat tuna every day. Tuna. We had a tuna fisherman do our program. He said we catch 10-foot tuna. See, one of the problems with mercury, there are a few, is it's bioaccumulative. Do you know what that means? The bigger the fish, the more the accumulation of mercury. Now, if you're feeling very sad right now because you love fish, my suggestion is make it a rare treat and go for the smaller, because the smaller the fish, the smaller the accumulation. And so what's happening with the mercury? More damage, so more build-up, more build-up, more build-up, more build-up, more build-up, more build-up. And the ages are certainly there because of his high carbohydrate diet, and they did an angiogram and rushed him in. And when I explained this to David, his eyes were opened. And when I told him about the dangers of cholesterol-lowering medication, he decided to stop the cholesterol medication immediately. I'm very thankful that 10 years ago I was running a retreat in Living Springs in Alabama, and there was a nutritionist. She was 69, and she was still working as a nutritionist. She said, my advantage is that I was in university 40 years ago. And she said 40 years 40 years ago, a cholesterol level of 300 was perfectly fine. Did you hear that? Perfectly fine. So you know what they've also done to try and reduce heart disease? They've lowered the levels. They've lowered the levels. Okay. Has that reduced heart disease? Not at all. Not at all. But what's risen, what has risen, is Alzheimer's. And last year I was in Maryland and I was talking to a lady who was 76. She said, I used to be a pathologist and I did all the testing on blood for cholesterol. She said, we considered a cholesterol level of 350 perfectly okay. And what are we told today? You can't go over 190. And if you go over 190, what are you told? You've got to go on some statin drugs. Are you ready for the side effects of the statin drugs? All the cholesterol-lowering medication, Crestor, Lipitor. Muscle wasting, memory loss, Alzheimer's, dementia, and they've just added another one, breast cancer. Because as you saw in our last class, our sex hormones are made from cholesterol. No wonder the good doctors and the good specialists and the good nutritionists have called their books The Great Cholesterol Lie, The Great Cholesterol Con, The Great Cholesterol Deception, The Great Cholesterol Hoax, The Great Cholesterol Myth. They're blowing the whistle. So why do people go on it? Fear. And remember what God said in 2 Timothy 1 verse 7? He said, I've not given you the spirit of fear, but of power. What's power? Knowledge. But of power, love, and a sound mind. You know what a sound mind does? It weighs up the pros and the cons. And on Saturday morning, I'm going to go into the brain and show you where our reason, intellect, and judgment is, where we weigh up the pros and the cons. And that's what we should make our decisions on. The Framingham Heart Study started 40 years ago, little town of Framingham. They set it up to prove that cholesterol causes heart disease. Well, it's 40 years later and it still hasn't done that. Got that? Still hasn't done that. But do you know what it showed? That people with high cholesterol levels don't get Alzheimer's. Do you need a moment's silence to digest that? Don't get Alzheimer's because the fattiest organ in the body is the brain. And our brain has 1 trillion of these nerve cells. And do you remember yesterday I showed you that the membrane around every nerve cell is 50% fat and 50% protein? But the nerve cell has an arm coming out of it that's covered with a fatty sheath called the myelin sheath. There's another 20% fat. And so the nerve cell, the brain cell, is 70% fat. So when a person's on cholesterol-lowering medication, on a fat-free diet, having fish every day, having a flu injection every year, which has mercury in it, can you see that's a recipe for disaster? Because that myelin sheath protects the nerve cell. And you know what mercury does? Mercury effectively eats away at that nerve cell. So the mercury fillings in the mouth, the mercury in the fish, the mercury in the flu vaccine, then they're not having the fat, then they're on cholesterol-lowering medication. No wonder the doctors call it the con, the lie, the deception, the hoax, the myth. Remember what Dr. Malcolm Kendrick said? For the first time, normal levels of a normal vital body substance is being called a disease. So what's a good cholesterol level? I'll leave it up to you. Sounds like between 200 and 300 is pretty good. But most people, they are told, you got to go on this medication immediately, or you're a walking, talking heart attack. And you know what you say? Thank you so much for your advice. Take the script. I'm going to seriously consider this. And as you walk out, say, don't call me, I'll call you. Psalm 146 verse 3, put not your trust in princes, neither in the Son of Man, in whom there is no help. Who are the princes? They're the authorities in the field. I believe most doctors are ethical. And I really believe that the doctors should not be trusting the princes in the pharmaceutical company, because those princes don't tell them the truth. They put too much trust in them. Because what their system is based on deception. It's like the report on a new cancer cure I read in Time magazine. 50% cure, and this new drug that's only going to cost $10,000 a dose. And then I read the fine print. 2 people were tested and 1 died. So I got to have that magnifying glass to read the fine print. Jeez. See, it's a deception. It's actually not as it seems. I have a book in my library at home called Lipitor, Thief of Memory, because Lipitor is a common cholesterol-lowering medication. And it's written by Dr. Duane, his name is. And he was an astronaut and a doctor, and he went to have his yearly health test, and his cholesterol level was 200. And the doctor said, bit high, I'll put you on Lipitor. He went on it because he didn't want to have a heart attack and die. 6 weeks later, his wife found him out in the garden. He didn't know who she was. He didn't know who he was. And they'd been together since I was 16. And he's, I think, late 40s. So I stopped the Lipitor, and within 48 hours his mind was clear. 10 months later, he goes back for his yearly test. His cholesterol level's still 200. Doc says, it's still too high. And the astronaut said, I'm not going back on that. I nearly went mad on that. And the doctor said, it's very rare. Why did the doctor say that? Because that's what the pharmaceutical companies tell him. He said, look, what about half dose? He went on it because he doesn't want to have a heart attack. 6 weeks later, his wife found him out in the garden. He didn't know who she was, didn't know where he was, didn't know who he was. So he wrote his story and put it up on social media. Do you know, within hours, thousands of hits. Same thing happened to me. Because the side effects are memory loss, muscle wasting, dementia, and Alzheimer's, and now breast cancer. If you are on a cholesterol-lowering medication and you stop tonight, there will be a side effect. Your memory will return. Now, you may be on it for 10 years and you can stop it immediately. I had a couple come to me. I gave a lecture similar to this in New Zealand. This is about 8 years ago. A couple came to me 2 nights later, and they were in their 80s. They said, can we please talk to you? I said, what is it? And the man said, my wife, she's been on Lipitor for 10 years. He said that she was starting to leave the iron on, leave the oven on. He said, I'd wake up in the morning, or in the middle of the night, he said, and she wasn't in bed. I'd go looking for her, and she's in the next door's yard trying to put their clothes on that are on the clothesline. He said, we were so stressed about it, we can't have our eye on her 24 hours a day. Took her to the doctor. She's got a diagnosis. What's the diagnosis? Dementia. Alzheimer's. If you've been given a title, remember what you say. Thank you so much for your opinion. Got that? Opinion. I'm going to seriously consider this. You don't need to take it on. He said, we've booked her into an aged care facility. He said, we don't want to do that. We didn't want to do that, but we didn't know what else to do. He said, we came to your lecture on Tuesday night. We heard about the Lipitor. We took her off immediately. And he looked at me and he had tears in his eyes. He said, we've got my wife back. We're not going to put her in the aged care facility. And I looked at her and she smiled and nodded. See, her mind was already coming back. How many are in aged care facilities diagnosed with Alzheimer's, dementia, and it's because of the medication they're on? But it's not just the medication, it's usually because they're also dehydrated. It's usually also because of the dehydrating effect of the other medication. There can be a whole lot of things. A whole lot of things. But we have the opportunity to never get Alzheimer's. We have the opportunity to prevent that. That is the good news. So let's go back and continue looking at what medicine has done to actually reduce heart disease. And has any of that worked? No, it hasn't worked at all. And what's the definition of insanity? It's to do what you've always done and expect different results. And so, can you clear that out? Well, Dr. Agatha Thrash and her husband, Dr. Calvin Thrash, they started a health retreat called Uchee Pines. I think it's in Georgia. They're still running. They're both past now. If they were still alive, they'd probably be over 100. And she gave the story. I met her about 25 years ago. And she used to give the story that a lady came to their retreat to do a week's program, and she was an alcoholic, and she just had an angiogram, and she had 80% occlusion of two main arteries. But they didn't want to operate on her because of her age, and also because of her alcoholism. They knew that her tissues were weakened. So her family booked her into the health retreat. She wasn't very happy because there was no alcohol in the health retreat. And there were no cigarettes, and there was no caffeine. But the staff were so lovely. And she had juices, and they eased her through the difficult days. By the third day, she felt really good. Really good. And they had her on cayenne pepper, which helps to clear the arteries. They had her on a few herbs. I can't tell you exactly what they had her on, but they had her on some herbs that helped to clear it out, which I'll go through in a minute. Ginger and garlic are a couple of others. She started to walk every day. Do you know, on about day 4, with her mind so much clearer and her feeling so good, she started to read the Bible that was in her room. She started at Matthew, Mark, Luke and John, the stories of Jesus, and she fell in love with Jesus. Her mind was clear and she surrendered her life to God. And by the end of the week, she had a new lease on life. She felt so good. How quickly does the body respond when given the right conditions? And she said to Agatha, do I have to leave? Can I stay? Agatha said, we'll see what we can do. And they found a little room she could stay in, and I think she'd help with the laundry. But the next 10 months were, I think, the best years of her life. But unfortunately, an embolism in her brain burst, and she died instantly. And Agatha, as a medical doctor, did a post-mortem on her, and her arteries were clear. Now, I'm very thankful for that story, because unless a person, they think, unless they do an angiogram, how do they know if the arteries were clear? Do you know the signs that the arteries are clear are the way you feel? That was 10 months on a woman in her late 70s. I don't know, it's late 70s, early 80s. On an alcoholic whose tissues were weakened by her many years of alcoholism. And when Agatha did the post-mortem, the arteries were clear from 80% occlusion. I was talking to two women that did our program, young women in their mid-20s. They said, we're nutritionists, and they said, we were told that can never happen. Do you know, I never say never. Except in one area, drugs never cure disease. It's the body and the body only that can heal disease. So how can we clean those arteries out? How did this lady do it? It really was the Sustain Me principles. And the Sustain Me principles we looked at briefly yesterday in relation to diabetes. And I want to look at them now in relation to heart. The cells that line the arterial walls, in their very nucleus is the DNA, and there are 2,500 receptor sites on the DNA for vitamin D. And vitamin D is essential for the assimilation of calcium coming into the body. Calcium's called the king because when calcium gets in, it brings in all the minerals. And the highest source of minerals in dark green leafy vegetables, but also in salt. And what do the princes tell us about salt? There's salt and there's salt. In seawater, there are 92 minerals. In fact, seawater is called an isotonic solution because it is the exact same mineral balance and proportion as is found in the body. In fact, Dr. Jacques de Langry, who wrote the book Sea Salt's Hidden Power, he calls our internal fluids our internal ocean. And every time you urinate, go to the bathroom, sweat, cry, we're losing minerals. We're losing minerals. Our perspiration, we lose minerals, and we need to replace them. And the best way to replace them is to take them in the way God made them, which is in that balance. Now, of those 92 minerals, 30% is sodium, and 50% is chloride. So what man does, the princes, some of the princes, they scoop the sodium chloride up, haven't got time to wait for the rest, bleach it white, put aluminium with it, so it runs freely. There's your table salt. The doctor is right. Table salt will cause a rise in blood pressure because it's bringing an imbalance in and out of the cell. That causes pressure. Dr. Jacques de Langry, he's passed now, but he said if he gets a patient with high blood pressure, he puts them on the Celtic salt. Because the Celtic salt, it contains 82 minerals, whereas the other 10, they're in such pico proportion. Pico is a measurement that's barely measurable. It's inevitable that some are lost, but hey, 82 is a lot closer to 92 than 2. So we need minerals, but we need the vitamin D to be able to get the calcium to bring those minerals in. How do we get vitamin D? Half an hour in the sun, please, nothing on your skin. Nothing on the skin. Half an hour in the sun, 15 minutes front, 15 minutes back, will give you 20,000 international units of vitamin D. But if you wash your body with soap before you lay in the sun, you won't get any. Because the ultraviolet rays from the sun hit the skin and convert a form of cholesterol. Did everyone hear that? If your cholesterol levels are too low, you're not going to get vitamin D. So rather than preventing heart attacks, cholesterol-lowering medication can actually contribute to heart attacks. And if you lay it in the sun, get hot and sweaty, jump in the shower and wash it all off with lots of soap, you're not going to get vitamin D, because it takes about 2 hours once you've been in the sun for that skin to process that vitamin D. But if you dive in the lake or dive in the creek or dive in the sea, you won't lose your vitamin D because you're not washing the oils off with soap. Use of water. The best blood thinner in the world is water. How do I know that? I used to do a live blood analysis at Misty Mountain, and the blood jumps around like this. And very rarely, that occasionally, I'd do a live blood analysis and see this. And I'd say to the person, have you had any water to drink today? And you know what the answer was? No. And they would drink water, and the next day I'd take their blood and it looked like that. So how simple is that? Best blood thinner is just water. But taken in little by little, we need to be drinking 8 lots of 8 glasses a day. Start early. Take that little crystal of Celtic salt, about a sesame seed, before each glass. And all you will do is replace the minerals you lost yesterday. Sleep. While we sleep, amazing things happen. While we sleep, there's a whole lot of processes that are designed to restore, rebuild, heal the body. Also a processing of our memories through the day. Our heart needs to sleep at night. Yes, it'll keep going, but at a lot slower rate, which allows it to be restored and revived. But we need 8 hours a night. Trusting God. Trusting God takes into consideration all the emotional and mental aspects of disease. That's stress. Do you know, the old saying says, worry is blind and cannot discern the future. Isn't that true? What can you do? I was telling Jacqueline about a story. This is 10 years ago. I was staying in Washington State doing lectures at night, and they gave me a beautiful house to stay in. Apparently the owners of the house were on holiday somewhere. Beautiful big 2-story house. And in the morning, after breakfast, I went and sat in the sun, and the door behind me shut, and I went up. It was locked. My phone's in there. My purse is in there. I don't know where I am. I don't even know the name of the people that dropped me off there. It was at night. What are you going to do? I'm just glad I didn't have my nightie on. I'm glad I had at least got there. And it's in a place where every house is on about 5 acres. Do you know, worry is blind. Do you know what I thought? I serve a God that's a solution God. There is a way. So I looked around and I went for a walk. And I looked in some houses, see if I can see some friendly looking people. And there was a house not far from it. And there was a man out the front. I said, excuse me, I'm in a bit of a dilemma. I said, I'm staying in that house over there and I'm locked out and I'm Australian and I haven't got anything and can you help me? And he said, sure. He said, I know the people that own that house. I'll ring them up. And he rang them up and they had a key under a flower pot or something, and I got into the house. Can you see it's a situation where I can choose? I can choose to panic, or I can choose to say, do you know, I serve a solution God and there's a way out of this. Now, if I hadn't found anyone, I would have just kept walking till I did, because I thought this is quite an amusing situation. I knew that the people who'd picked me up and dropped me off were teachers. So that was my next step. I was going to see if someone could give me a lift into the school, and I'd look for... But my illustration is that at every situation in life, we have a choice. We can choose faith or we can choose fear. And faith and fear are polar opposites. And when you're stressed out, what happens to your blood pressure? It can rise up. So it's a matter of relaxing, breathing deeply. We're going to look at this one in a minute. Inhale, and it has an incredible effect to actually calm us, is just the deep breathing. Abstain. And I'm just going to let you guess what are some disastrous things for the heart. I didn't hear it. Starts with C. Yep, it's that caffeine. Why? Why is it no good for your heart? It's because when a person has a cup of coffee, they've created a crisis in the body. And that crisis causes the blood pressure to go up. Because in a crisis, you're about to do the run or the climb or the fight of your life. So blood pressure rises so that you're moving faster. And the person's just sitting in the coffee shop. So there are some things that must stop. And yes, caffeine is one of them. Caffeine, and look at all the things that damage the arterial wall. The cheap oils that have been extracted using high heat and chemical equipment, what they do is they cause damage to those arterial walls. And remember, telling people to go on the fat-free, low-fat diet, going on the margarine, another altered dangerous fat, that has not reduced heart disease at all, but it certainly has increased Alzheimer's and dementia. Stopping butter and going on the margarine has not lowered heart disease at all. In fact, your body can handle butter better than it can handle the margarine. What do I put on my bread? Olive oil. What does my husband put on his bread? We call it God's butter, avocado. Avocado. So you can look at other things to put on your bread. But after hearing what we heard yesterday, you probably don't eat much bread, yeah? So the cheap oils are a big contributing factor. Chemicals, we've got to get the chemicals. Last lecture we looked at how dangerous the chemicals are regarding hormones and how they're contributing to that imbalance, but they're also damaging the arterial walls. So there are some things that absolutely must stop, and yes, the refined sugar and refined grains. Refined sugar and grains are contributing factors because they up the sugar in the blood, calling those ages, which sticks against. So refined sugar and refined grains. Inhale through the nose. So in Genesis 2 verse 7, God said that He formed man from the dust of the ground, breathed into his nostrils. Now I showed you last night that nostrils purify the air, humidify the air, warm the air, also pressurize the air, balance blood gases. What are these blood gases? One of the blood gases is oxygen. And the other blood gas is carbon dioxide. And carbon dioxide, we can have too much of it and we can also have not enough of it. And the other blood gas is nitric oxide. Now, where these play a role in the heart is that carbon dioxide and nitric oxide are both vasodilators. What are vasodilators? Vasodilators open the blood vessels. Some other vasodilators are cayenne pepper. It's a great vasodilator, opening the blood vessels. You open the blood vessels, you get a better delivery of blood through the whole body. So let me show you how this is a lung, and the trachea splits, and then you've got all these little bronchioles, and at the end of every bronchiole, there's what looks like a little bunch of grapes, and let me magnify that for you. Looks like this, and we have about 300 million of those alveoli in our lungs, and that's where the gaseous exchange takes place. So let me show you how this happens, because it's quite fascinating. So we're going to, we've already got a red. So over that little alveoli is the blood vessel. That's supposed to be red. Oh, there's a bit of red coming. And in that blood vessel, you've got carbon dioxide, because it's the waste product coming from the combustion of oxygen and glucose in the cell. So the carbon dioxide comes in the blood. We breathe in the air, and there's a gaseous exchange. With that gaseous exchange, there's the blood vessel. If you've got 4 molecules of carbon dioxide, then your blood can pick up 4 molecules of oxygen. But if you've only got 2 molecules of carbon dioxide, then your blood can only pick up 2 molecules of oxygen. And if you breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth, you will lose too much carbon dioxide. So we should be breathing in and out through our nose. The hardest times when you're exercising, I'm sure you tried it this morning when you're running up the hill, is that right? Sorry? It's the hardest time, but you can train yourself into it. So breathing in and out through the nose raises your carbon dioxide levels, because if you breathe out through your mouth, you lose too much carbon dioxide. Was anyone brave enough to sleep with their mouth taped up last night? Don't see any hands. To raise the carbon dioxide levels in your blood, because more carbon dioxide in the blood means more oxygen. And do you remember we looked at the cell? And we looked at the cell, and the glucose goes in, and remember the first pathway that has no oxygen, 2 units of energy. The second pathway that has oxygen, 36 units of energy. Whew. What a difference oxygen makes. And you can get more oxygen in your cell by getting more oxygen in your blood, which is going to carry it to the cell by breathing only in and out through the nose. There's more. They discovered that the cells that are used mostly in exercise, which would be the quads, I'm sure when you did your squats this morning, your quads. So your quads and maybe your calf muscles, especially if you're walking or exercise bike, they found that the muscles used mostly in exercise are getting more oxygen in there than the cells that aren't used in exercise. Why? Because they're giving off more carbon dioxide. And that gaseous exchange, as it happens in the alveoli in the lung, is also happening at the cell. So when there are 4 molecules of carbon dioxide coming out of that cell, 4 molecules of oxygen can get in. It's a gaseous exchange. And when you breathe in and out through your nose, you're maintaining correct carbon dioxide levels. It is true you can have too much carbon dioxide, but you can also have not enough carbon dioxide. So breathing in and out through the nose not only raises oxygen levels, by raising carbon dioxide, but that carbon dioxide has a vasodilator effect. So if you find someone who's got an irregular heartbeat, if you find someone seems to be having a heart attack, one of the best things you can do is to ask them very politely to close their mouth and breathe in and out through the nose. And what that will automatically do is raise their carbon dioxide levels, and carbon dioxide is a vasodilator, opens the blood vessels. When you breathe in and out through your nose, that the sinuses release nitric oxide. Nitric oxide is an agent that is antimicrobial, antibacterial, but it is also a vasodilator. So 2 gases are released that cause vasodilation when you breathe in and out through your nose. That makes it even more attractive. And cayenne pepper is a vasodilator. Cayenne pepper is a blood thinner. Do you know there's no need for rat poison, I mean warfarin. Do you know that's what it is? They don't give humans as much compared to their size as rats, of course. But I've met people on warfarin and the blood is dripping out of their nose. And every time they brush their hand, they're bruising. So I say to them, I have no authority over your medication and I can't tell you what to do, but I can tell you what I would do. So for someone on warfarin, they can start taking 2 capsules of cayenne pepper 3 times a day. That's a very high dose. In the book, Jethro Kloss's book, Back to Eden, he devotes half a page to every herb, 10 pages to cayenne pepper. Yeah. Now this man, his eyes were opened in the area of health when he read that little book, Ministry of Healing, probably in the early 1900s. And he got interested in health. He also became a Christian and he started studying herbs and he wrote the book, Back to Eden, by Jethro Kloss. That's his name, Jethro Kloss. 10 pages to cayenne pepper. 2 doctors are quoted in his paper, his 10 pages on cayenne pepper. One doctor says it's impossible to abuse cayenne pepper. The other doctor says it'll never cause a lesion, it'll never cause a wound or a sore or a burn. Impossible to abuse cayenne pepper. Do you know what that means? You could have a bucket a day and it won't hurt you. But I don't know anyone that has a bucket a day. And if someone says 2 capsules of cayenne pepper 3 times a day, is that safe? Has anyone asked if the warfarin's safe? If the statin drugs are safe? You could take a bucket a day and it won't hurt you. But no one does that. I give that as an illustration to show this cannot harm you. If you find it a little hard on an empty stomach, don't take it on an empty stomach. Take it with food. And if 2 capsules 3 times a day is too much, we'll go to 1 capsule 3 times a day and build up to it. You're the doctor, listen. But remember, it will never cause a lesion or a burn. There's a medical journalist named Sam Beiser, and he's written a book, Curing with Cayenne. And when you read that book, you'll think it's a cure-all, and it just about is. It's almost the first aid kit in one. Cayenne pepper thins the blood. Cayenne pepper is a vasodilator. It opens the blood vessels. Cayenne pepper can repair and rebuild arterial walls. What an amazing herb. An amazing herb. Somewhere in here is my, here we go. So we're looking at how you can conquer heart disease, you can conquer high blood pressure through the Sustain Me principles, nutrition. and nutrition, we've looked at the 3 essential food groups, which is fibre, protein and fat. So fibre we should be eating every meal, and all your plant foods, especially fruits and vegetables, high in fibre. Protein, legumes, chickpeas, lima beans, black-eyed beans, nuts, seeds, incorporate them every meal. How many people don't eat nuts for a month and then buy a whole packet and eat the whole lot, not in the afternoon? And unfortunately, Jacqueline was working in a health food shop one day and there was nothing to eat and she was working all day, so she just ate a whole pound of nuts. And then the next day when she ate one nut, big reaction, she developed an allergy. That would be very sad to have an allergy to nuts. She can eat them now, but only a little. And her body tells her if she's overdone it. So a good idea is to have 8 to 10 nuts per meal. That's a nice amount. So what you do is you get the nuts out of the jar, put the lid on, put it back in the cupboard, shut the door, put the padlock on. Because they are very nice and we can tend to overeat them. And I trust that I've proven to you that fat is not the problem. The only fat that's the problem is those really cheap oils that have been extracted using high heat and chemicals from the hard seeds. Moderation in all the good things. We just described the importance of moderation in, yes, delicious things like nuts. And the last one is exercise. And I've read several books, and I think I have to go back this way. I've read several books by doctors who've used exercise to strengthen their heart patient's heart. And they have discovered that the high-intensity interval training is the most powerful form of exercise for the heart. We touched on it last night, and I want to go into a little bit more detail. So the high intensity can be anything that gets the heart rate up. We've got a really good hill where I'm staying at the moment, and walking up there really gets the heart rate up. Usually for 30 seconds. And recovery, look at 2 minutes, and then do this for a cycle. Dr. Doug McGuff, who was looking at this for his heart patients, this is what the regime that he started with for a cycle of 6. That's about 15 minutes a day. But what I'm very thankful to Doug McGuff is he goes inside the cell, and that's what I want to show you now. We're going to go inside the cell and have a look at why this is such an effective way to strengthen the heart. So the glucose goes in, it goes through a 20-step pathway. You know this one off by heart by now, is that right? Gives us 2 units of energy. The end result is a chemical form of glucose called pyruvate, which gets fed into the 8-step pathway called the powerhouse of the cell, because it'll give us 36 units of energy, and the difference is oxygen. This one, no oxygen. Then we've got our glycogen stores. Remember the quick-release glucose stores that are already sitting in our muscle cells that I'm sure you used up on your morning walk this morning? And then any excess glucose gets stored as fat. These are our basement stores. But what I want to show you is what happens with this whole process with the high-intensity interval training. Now, this is a very fast pathway. We've looked at that a few times. This one here is slow. So when you do the high-intensity interval training, so that could be walking up a steep hill or running or on the exercise bike or push-ups or squats, doing 30 squats in a row will really get it up. Rowing machine, whatever it is, something that'll get that heart rate up and the respiration increased. When you do the high intensity, the 20-step pathway speeds up and the 8-step pathway speeds up. That's not a surprise. But there's a rate-setting enzyme in there that will always keep this one faster and this one slower. So what the body does, that excess pyruvate that's made it stores it as lactic acid. You've heard of lactic acid? Now, the beauty of the high-intensity interval training, it has a few things. Yesterday we looked at how the high intensity can cause extra receptor sites for insulin to develop on the cell wall. Now I want to show you what else it does. In recovery time, that lactic acid is converted back to pyruvate. Do you know what that means? When you're in recovery time might be just doing some gentle stretches. They've discovered that recovery time, if you're doing something a bit gentler, is better than just doing nothing. So often, Michael and I in the rainforest, it's when we walk downhill, we're in recovery, and run up the hill. When you're in recovery time, this lactic acid is converted back to pyruvate, then fed into the powerhouse. So when you're in recovery time, you're burning just as much fuel as when you're running as fast as you can. But what also is happening is the lactic acid is being mopped up. And that's why trainers today are training their athletes all in the high-intensity interval training. And we're training for something far more important than the Olympic Games. We're training for life. I want to enjoy my latter years. And how many people today, the last 20 years of their life, are miserable? I don't want that. And there's no need to be that. 15 minutes. If you haven't got 15 minutes, it's time to assess what you do with your time. Remember Ecclesiastes chapter 3, to every time there is a season. There's a time for every purpose under heaven. There is a time in your day for exercise. You just got to find it. And the best time is early. If you keep saying, I'll do it later, it'll never happen. And if you do it early in the morning, you will reap the benefits all through the day. Now we're getting to our second set of high intensity. And we're really starting to use up our glycogen stores. In fact, by the third set, we've probably exhausted our glycogen stores. But we need more fuel because we've got another couple of high intensities to do. And so what the body does now, from the pituitary gland, it releases the human growth hormone. The human growth hormone is naturally occurring when we're children. When we stop growing, it goes into retirement. Now, the human growth hormone has an amazing effect on the body. In fact, many movie stars pay $1,000 a week for this, and I'm offering it to you cut price today. 15 minutes, high-intensity interval a day will cause a release of the human growth hormone, and that remains active for 24 hours. What a bargain. The human growth hormone causes a release of hormone-sensitive lipase, and that hormone-sensitive lipase starts to break down the fat stores. What's also happening is the human growth hormone causes the body to stop burning glucose as fuel and become a fat burner. Now, the reason it becomes a fat burner is because glucose burns at 4 calories per gram, and fat burns at 9 calories per gram. Now, every weight loss book has this in psychedelic colours as the proof as to why you shouldn't eat fat if you want to lose weight, but they don't understand what a calorie is. A calorie is a unit of energy. And if you want a high energy food, what do you eat? Fat. It's a bit hard to say, isn't it? We've been so brainwashed on fat. Now you can see why the body starts burning fat as fuel, because it's going to give more than twice the units of energy. compared to burning glucose as fuel. The human growth hormone increases our body's ability to utilise protein. This week we've looked at the importance of eating adequate protein. We've looked at the importance of not drinking with your meals so you can break down that protein. Now we're looking at another aspect, and that is when we implement the high intensity interval training, causing a release of the human growth hormone, it increases our body's ability to utilise that protein. Also, the human growth hormone increases the circulation of the blood to the skin. No wonder the movie stars pay $1,000 for this. Their business is dependent on them looking good. Their business is dependent on slowing down the wrinkles coming. Yes, the wrinkles will come, but in many people they're coming too soon. And one of the biggest articles that ages, especially women, very quickly is caffeine. Have I convinced you yet? Increases the circulation of the blood to the skin. Are you starting to see that everything we need, we've got? We've got inside of us, we just need to know how to access it, which I trust I have shown you. The Bible says in Proverbs chapter 4 verse 23, keep the heart with all diligence. How do you keep the heart with all diligence? You keep the heart with all diligence through the sustain me principles. Keep the heart with all diligence because out of it are the issues of life. The heart pumps the blood, and Leviticus 17:11 says the life of the flesh is in the blood. The life is the blood. So we keep the heart with all diligence by implementing the sustain me principles, and we keep the blood strong, we keep it thin, we keep it, remember what it's carrying? Oxygen. Inhale through the nose so you ensure you got adequate oxygen. It carries the nutrient. Have the best quality food you can get. High fibre, generous protein, great fats, because the blood carries the nutrition to every cell. And drink adequate water because the blood is the carrier of the water. So the blood is the life of the flesh if we're breathing through our nose, eating nourishing food and drinking adequate water. I love the fact that it's so simple. One more thing that I wanted to mention before we finish, and that is that there is a herb called the hawthorn berry. And the hawthorn berry is a heart-strengthening herb. The hawthorn berry has the ability to even bring back into balance the heartbeat in a condition like heart arrhythmia. The hawthorn berry is a very safe herb. You can take large amounts. You can even take 4,000 to 5,000 milligrams a day. And I have seen many people get off their blood pressure medication. I trust you've seen you can stop the cholesterol-lowering medication immediately. You can stop the blood thinning medication immediately, but please drink 8 glasses of water a day. And you can also start reducing the blood pressure medication by implementing the hawthorn berry, but at the same time, must go to bed early, must drink adequate water, must exercise every day. And that will reduce the heart disease. That will reduce the high blood pressure. That is the answer to heart disease. But as you can see, there aren't any multinationals that can make any money out of this. They're the simple methods that God gave us to bring about healing in the body. So please, I ask you to keep the heart with all diligence, because out of it are the issues of life. We'll have some questions now. When was the first time you heard God's voice? It's hard to know. His voice comes in many ways. But when I look back now, I think I started hearing it even in my teen years, but I actually didn't want to know about it much then. But by the age of 26, I started to think about life. I had 2 little children, and I realised that there is a God of heaven, and I started to read the Bible. And when I read the Bible, then I surrendered my heart to God. Are there benefits to cold plunge baths? There are. But don't start with 5 minutes. Start with 7 seconds, and then go up to 10 seconds, and then go up to 30 seconds. So get your body used to it. But there certainly are, and you've got some great lakes out there that you could cold plunge in. Best parenting advice when kids go out on their own. Do you know the best parenting advice is learn to listen? Yeah? And you never nag, because it never does any good. Have you noticed? I never compromised on what I believed, even if I didn't agree with my children, but I don't tell them because they already know. It's like when I went out with my children, my sons, having dinner out. And yeah, Barbara, do you have dinner? Not much, but sometimes I do when I'm going, because my boys work all day. And they're looking at the menu and they're looking at the wine list. And I said, there's a good one, ginger beer. Yeah, Mum. And they have a beer with the meal. Now, if I say to them, excuse me, but you really shouldn't be eating that, are they going to want to have dinner with me again? And they already know. So I think it's very important to remain friends with them. It's very important to listen. But you don't actually change your, what you believe in. What's your opinion on using CBD for pain? Personally, I don't use it. Personally, I don't advise it. But if someone says to me, my father's dying of pancreatic cancer and the CBD oil's really helping him, I'll say, great. What are your thoughts, opinions on using nicotine like gum, mint, etc.? Not nicotine from smoking. I believe it's going from the pot into the frying pan. It's still nicotine. And I found the best way to detox from nicotine is to stop and fast for a day or 2. And we find that that's one, and especially if you exercise and go to the gym and go through hot saunas and have cold plunges, that really gets the nicotine out of the body quickly. I find going from smoking to gum just prolongs the agony. Best books to help quit smoking, best herbs to help quit smoking cigarettes. I find that 2 days of juicing is great. We've had many people come off cigarettes coming to our retreat and doing that. There's a herb called St. John's wort, and St. John's wort is a nerve nourisher, so that can help to nourish and calm the nerves when you stop smoking. I've had a few people say every time they get an urge to have a cigarette, they drink water. Just keep drinking water. How would you treat floaters in the eyes? Castor oil. I've had a few people tell me after putting castor oil in the eyes for a few weeks, there's no more floaters. You can either put a drop in your eye, you can just wipe the castor oil over your eye. Either way, it'll get in. What is your answer to neuropathy? Medicine has no answer, and medicine says there is no cure. But there is. And it's cayenne pepper compresses on the bottom of the feet. And in my book, Sustain Me, I show you how you can make it. You just get kitchen paper, put a few drops of oil on there, then half a teaspoon of cayenne pepper per foot, put a bit of plastic under it, bandage it on, put a sock on. By morning, often the person can feel pins and needles. That's the first sign that life's coming back into the feet. How often would you do it? You might do it 3 times a week. You listen and watch the response. What is the best cure for cystic acne? Often cystic acne has a hormonal aspect, And so I would suggest the yam cream for young men and young women, and also go on a much cleaner diet, the diet that we've been looking at here. Keep well hydrated, and be careful what you put on the skin. One of the best is really coconut oil. Sunshine, it's great. It's great on the skin. Is flaxseed and quinoa bad for you? I do hear it has estrogen. Not much. And you know what it is? It's a natural estrogen. And those natural estrogens are so minor. In fact, the synthetic estrogens found in the plastics, they're about 400 times stronger than the natural plant estrogens. And when the plant estrogens, they work with the cell. So if the cell needs it, it'll go in. If the cell doesn't need it, it'll just sit at the door, which protects that cell from the chemical estrogens. How can I detox from heavy metals? You call it cilantro. We call it fresh coriander. But it's a metal chelator, the fresh coriander, and also chlorella. Chlorella is an algae, and you can get it in tablet or capsule form, and that is a metal chelator. Can tinnitus be cured? Ringing and crackling in the ear. In my book, Sustain Me, there's a chapter on ears where I talk about that. Often it's a result of damage done from years ago. Rock singers all have it, that loud. What's happened is they've damaged the fine mechanisms in the ear. But and even people that have used jackhammers or been in the war and had the heavy noises, but you can manage it, and I find it can be managed by eliminating the allergens, the wheat, dairy, oats, peanuts and refined sugar. They tend to cause excess mucus in the eustachian tubes, and that increases the pressure in the ears. So I find once you can clear those eustachian tubes out, then that ringing in the ear is much, much less. Cold sore remedy, there is an amino acid called lysine, and you can get lysine in tablets. In Australia, there's a product called Lipsine, and it's in capsule form, and that's specifically for cold sores. And the first inkling of a cold sore, if you put a block of ice on it, ice it even every half hour, that can also stop the development of cold sore. Cold sore is from the herpes virus. Once you got it, you will always have it, but we find that when the diet and the lifestyle improves, then it's much less. And the minute you feel it coming, take the lysine capsules or tablets and ice it. You can often stop it. Trigger finger help. Should I have surgery? I wouldn't have surgery. I would go to bed every night with a castor oil compress around that trigger finger. What do you suggest for adult night incontinence and adult male bedwetting? It often is an indication of inflammation of the prostate gland. And in my book, Sustain Me, there's a chapter on the prostate called Male Matters. So I would look at that, and there are ways that you can strengthen the urethral muscle, and also there are ways that you can reduce the inflammation of the prostate. What do you suggest for shingles, especially for the pain and itching? Shingle is something that really has to take its course, and please don't have the vaccine against it because it does not help. Some people have told me that alternating hot and colds on the shingles can bring relief. And one lady told me that she had a cream from the pharmacist, and it was a capsicum cream. And she said you'd apply it and it would tingle a little bit, but then it has an analgesic effect and can null the difficult sensation that one gets from shingles. COVID vaccine protocols for injury from it. Are there any protocols to get rid of the spike proteins? Dr. Peter McCulloch, You might be familiar with him. He has an excellent protocol for helping the body cope with the COVID vaccine. What can you do for Raynaud's syndrome? Do you know, it's very interesting. You know what it is? It's just cold feet and hands. It's interesting the names they give us, isn't it? And when someone has chronically cold feet and hands, it's usually because the feet and hands have been allowed to be cold. You don't let them get cold. Whenever your feet and hands get cold, you must warm them up. Because what happens is the body gets into the habit of not having the blood down there, because the blood is what brings warmth. And especially in weather like this, woolen socks, but don't put cold feet into woolen socks, they'll stay cold. So what you do is you warm them up. You can't put cold feet into hot water. You have to put cold feet into warm water and slowly build it up. And then once you've got your feet warm, then you dip them very quickly into cold water, which equalises the circulation, dry them, and then put the woolen socks on and put the woolen Ugg boots on. But I have found that when people start implementing an exercise program, that increases the circulation of the blood to the extremities. And I've had several people testify that since they're exercising, then they don't get the cold feet and hands anymore. But when you go exercising, you should have gloves on. You've got to keep those extremities warm. What do you think about using nutritional yeast flakes? I never use nutritional yeast flakes because it's yeast. And we have had people react to them, so we don't use them. What's your take on blood type affecting your dietary needs? Did you know that horses have 20 different blood types and they all eat grass? How is the best way to heal a rectal vaginal fistula? In my book, Sustain Me, there's a chapter on hydrotherapy. And one hydrotherapy treatment that can help heal this is alternating sitting in hot and cold. They call them sitz baths, which is German for sit. Sitting in hot water, sitting in cold. It's usually 3 minutes hot, 30 seconds ice cold, and you do that 3 times. And also sleeping with a castor oil pack on that area. That can be very helpful. What are your thoughts on chronic Lyme's disease? There's a book called Healing Lyme's, and that book is by Stephen Harrod Brunner. And we've seen many people conquer Lyme's by adhering to his protocol. Harrod, and it's hyphenated Brunner, B-R-U-H-N-E-R. We don't have much Lyme's in Australia. I've actually never come across Lyme's. I've never treated anyone with Lyme's. But in America, I've met a few people, and I just refer them to the book. One lady, I saw her a year later, and she said, "Thank you, I implemented his protocol, and I've conquered my Lyme's disease." What causes hemorrhoids, and is it possible to cure them for good? That is possible. It's very important to keep the bowels working regularly, and squatting. We looked day before on squatting, because it takes all the pressure off the anal area. And in my book Sustain Me, there are a few things you can do, but I'll tell you about a suppository that is 50% coconut oil, and it's 50% castor oil, 50% castor oil. And you melt the coconut oil, you mix them together, and then you get disposable gloves. Okay, and you fill the fingers with that mix, and then you tie them off there, and you put it in the fridge. And if you want it to go solid quickly, you can put them in the freezer. And then before going to bed at night, you cut a finger off, peel the plastic off, and insert it. And the coconut oil melts, and it's really just a carrier for the castor oil, and that can be incredibly helpful. Now, Jacqueline She sells a essential oil mix called Peace Please. And this little oil mix is very, very soothing and healing on hemorrhoids. And it also has a paper in there that explains how the way you go to the toilet, how you sit, strengthening the muscles. It gives you quite a bit of information on conquering hemorrhoids. Cataracts, please. We've seen quite a few people reduce their cataracts by putting castor oil in the eye. Either put a drop in or rub it on the eyelid. It will penetrate through. What's a typical daily schedule for you? I'll be as quick as possible. I usually wake at 5. I usually walk at 6. Usually eat at 7. And then I've got a variety of things that I might do in that day, depending on where I am. And then I usually eat at 1 or 1:30. And I always have a big salad, always have some sort of legume, always have a starch. It might be simple needs bread, or it might be sweet potatoes and potatoes, especially if my husband's there. And it depends where I am. If I'm at home, I'm usually out gardening. So I have a variety of things I do in the day. What's a typical day? Oh, I've done that one. What on average days worth of meals look like for you? I guess we just did that. So my breakfast this morning, I'm enjoying some delicious oranges that someone gave me from California, and very delicious apples and chia seed and almonds and Brazils I usually have in the morning, and a slice of simple needs sourdough bread with olive oil and cayenne pepper and avocado. And this morning we had red lentils on that, and the recipe I use is in Self Heal by Design. It's very simple. In fact, it takes me about 10 minutes to make. And I do not get hungry for 5 to 6 hours on that, which is great. So today at lunch, I had green olives that I bought at that wonderful little olive oil shop in Coeur d'Alene. I'm not sure what it's called, but it's in the main street of Coeur d'Alene. Miliore. Something like that. And some very nice olives from there. And I always have a big salad with lunch, avocado and quite a few things. And I think I mentioned earlier we had cannelloni beans in an Alfredo sauce that was made with cashews, blend cashews and water to a cream, and broccoli. What was the... okay. So I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Tomorrow we've got some more interesting subjects, and I'll hand it over to Pastor and say good night. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that this evening. Tomorrow is Friday. There will be no book signing. The books are sold out, but you can go to the website. And again, you can go to haydenlakeadventist.org and the link, and go to Barbara's official website. So tomorrow we start at 5 o'clock. I believe we're going to have the doors open at 4, a little earlier, or 4:30. Look forward to seeing you. Remember that Saturday services will be at 9:30 in the morning, a little bit different schedule. All right, may God bless you and keep you until we see you tomorrow. Have a good evening.